Welcome back to the Mental Perk podcast, where we focus on real people, real issues, and real talk. I'm Carla Hutcherson, a licensed professional counselor and the director for the Hannah for Hope Foundation.
And I'm Brandy Mock, executive board member for the Hannah for Hope Foundation.
We are here to talk about all things mental health, whether it's daily stress, academic pressure, work and career issues, managing a diagnosis, or suicidal and self-harm behaviors. We want this to be a space of honest talk that helps to destigmatize perceptions surrounding mental health issues. Today, we want to welcome Earl Jackson. He's a board-certified family attorney here in Dallas, and just to note, he ran for judge last year. So, Earl, tell us a little bit about you. What does it mean to be board-certified?
It means I can use the word specialist. I'm a specialist in family law. It means after an extensive examination of my credentials and whatnot, I was approved to be able to sit for an exam, which takes place over 2 days, to be board-certified in family law.
That sounds pretty rigorous.
It was pretty rigorous. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
They only let about 30% pass that exam. The rest are out.
And we know there's a lot to do with family law, and we need family lawyers out there.
That's what chose me many years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So, I was going to bring up a couple of different statistics. We really want to focus on what are lawyers experiencing with mental health. Not only does their job affect their own mental health, but they see things within the families that they work with. And so that's really where we want to focus today. 44% of attorneys believe that there is a crisis point in mental health in their industry right now. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Alcohol, drugs, cocaine, not to mention weed, is a big deal in the bar exam, in the bar, and the bar takes it very seriously. It's a very serious thing. They can get a lawyer in trouble with the bar, but it's also something where they're self-medicating about issues that are going on in their own life and
absolutely.
their practice.
Have you seen lawyers or friends or others that have kind of fallen in this industry or that have really struggled due to their mental health issues?
Lawyers are not going to really share that kind of thing with other lawyers.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have.
Yeah.
And I have friends that have been sober for many, many years, top tier lawyers. And I have other ones who, they probably ought to put some of that up on the shelf. Go down the street.
Well, at least 35% in the industry are reporting some form of depression or anxiety. Would you say it's higher or lower?
I would say that's about right. That's probably true.
That's
it's
probably
a very
true.
stressful job.
Yeah.
I mean, it's out there. I mean, you're in the game.
Yeah.
And you have a lot, families and clients have a lot riding on what is being said and what is being presented. The lawyer's responsibility is to be able to have the case prepared and presented properly, and sometimes that doesn't happen, and that's what causes lawyers to wake up in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I would also think just the effects of seeing the results on their clients and when they don't get, the ruling that they want, or maybe the judge didn't rule in a way that was favorable to a child. I bet those are things that are really hard to see.
You see that quite frequently, or enough. I say enough to be shocking. Yeah. Most of the time, the judges are going to be truly fair. Now, that doesn't mean in family law, somebody going to win. Mm-hmm. What is a win? And you're dealing with the child, right? What's the win? Both of you are going to be made joint managing conservators. That's automatic in Texas. One party's going to pay child support. That's based upon what we call net resources. There's going to be an expanded standard possession order, which is almost a 50% schedule, even though some might argue with that, especially the dads. But it's about 45, 55, and I can do a whole thing about it. So you need to know going into the case with your child that is what's going to happen unless you have some facts that demonstrate it should be otherwise. Those facts would be family violence, or basically hard drug use. Cocaine and methamphetamines being very, very serious. And so that would make a parent a sole managing conservator. I have one case, it's been going on for quite some time. Mom set out in the case to prevent dad from seeing the kids at all. Mm-hmm. This case is almost 7 years old.
Wow.
It's a lot of reasons for that, but it's almost 7 years old. So Mom started off the case with dad doesn't get to see the children except for 2 hours on one Saturday per month.
And he doesn't really have, there's not necessarily a legitimate reason why.
She didn't have a reason. She has to attach an affidavit to her pleading in order to get there, but she didn't have a basis for that. I read it, and I told my client, we'll go down there. We'll talk reasonably with the lawyer, and if necessary, we'll talk with the judge, and you're going to get your expanded standard, and we'll be done with this case. That was not what happened. I went to the lawyer. It was a young lawyer, a very unwise lawyer, and I presented the issues, and I said, you don't have a basis for this. We need to resolve this case right now, and your client will be the primary designee, which is the mother, and my client will have expanded standard and be a joint managed conservator. She was vehemently opposed, even though her affidavit had no facts to support anything else. My guy was not a drug user. My guy was not an alcoholic. My guy not engaged in family violence or any of those aspects that might cause such a situation.
Correct.
So what happened was we ended up having a hearing before the court, and then that hearing got reset to another date because the court didn't have time. And my client got his expanded standard. It's very interesting thing about the case, this particular case. 2 years ago, we ended up trying the case, and my client, the father, was made sole managing conservator of the children. Why? Because she had engaged in family violence against the two children, and we had proof of it. Now he's sole managing conservator, wherein she started the game back in the day where he would only have 2 hours.
Yeah.
Now we're set for, and this gets into the ramifications of the law, but we have another trial in this case coming up this fall where the case will be completely finished. And of course, mom wants to once again try to be the primary designee or sole managing conservator of the child. Well, the children are doing very, very well in the school they're in. Okay, the oldest is very, very popular. Okay, this is an interesting thing about her. She's been to several award ceremonies while she's under the dad's primary care. She's been nominated for some leadership courses and things that are selective. She's doing very, very well, except for one thing. She's making outcries to suicide.
Oh, goodness.
And the interesting thing about that is these outcries of suicide occur only when she's about to go visit with the mother.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
So something's going on there. And it's very difficult to prove. It's not easy to say, mother's causing this to happen, because we don't have any direct proof.
But the stress the child's under
Yeah.
going between these 2 homes, I
Right.
mean, a lot of kids are suffering when they have to travel between 2 homes, especially when there's conflict in the relationship between parents.
Exactly.
Now,
Exactly.
do you find that when this is a situation that you go ahead and recommend the father get the child in counseling so she can start sharing some of the stressors of what's triggering her to feel the way she feels when she gets ready to go to her
We've
mom's?
done that. We've done that. In
Okay.
this particular case, the family has been going to a family PhD therapist.
Okay.
Okay. And she's very, very good. Because she has been counseling the family, she cannot counsel the daughter.
Conflict of interest.
So she has recommended, and the child is now seeing
Their own
a-
therapist.
Okay.
her own therapist.
Okay.
Okay. And by the way, Mama, as interested as she is, has never reached out to the counselors, neither one of them, to see about how her daughter's doing
Right.
and what she could do to help. What might be causing these problems? What she has is she is so angry and hateful toward my client, the father, okay, that she's projecting that upon this child and bringing the child into the case. And that is what it's going to be with her the rest of her life.
Well, and surely, though, I think sometimes you'll see judges, if they get enough of that information, judges usually frown upon that because these children are being pulled into the middle of adult situations. And so I know judges usually don't like that. I guess it depends on the district you're in, the county, all that good stuff.
Most
But-
counties in Texas have what we call a standing order, and that standing order states that the child will not be brought into the case.
Right.
Okay, you're not to talk about the case, the hearings, what's happened with the child or in front of the child, or let your best friend or your mom or your aunt do that as well.
Right.
They need to be kept out of the case under all circumstances. And even if you hate your spouse, or former spouse, hate your spouse, then what you need to do is pretend that it's okay. All right?
Exactly. And I think you and I, this is where it crosses over, because this is what I see in my office too. And I have families that, I'm working with a child, and the main part of the reason the child's there is because these parents cannot find a way to not fight. And so these kids are so affected by it. They're becoming suicidal. They're depressed. They just want an out. They want it to stop. And the parents are so into the anger and the guilt that they cannot really see that it's putting the child ahead of them. And so I agree with you. There's a lot of this going on, and you and I have talked about it. I used to work in the family court system and write social studies. And so I've seen a lot of these cases that you've talked about. I've been in the homes, and I've seen what goes on, and it's very, very disturbing. I think the other thing that you and I had a passion about was typically kids, unless there's a reason, are going to have mom as the managing conservator. Is that correct?
That's generally the way it is in our society. Now, the law says the sex of either parent is not to be taken into consideration, period, in a report, okay?
Right.
So mom and dad are going to start off on the same foot, right? But here, this is the facts.
But you have to put the kids in a school with close to one home over the other, all those things.
The general truth is, mom, most of the time, not always, but most of the time, is the person who's going to be making the doctor's appointments, going to be making the kids' lunch, making sure they have their lunch money, et cetera, et cetera. And the father, most of the time, not always, is going to be the person who goes out and wins the money.
Yeah.
Okay, earns the money to support the family. That's generally the way it is, okay? Sometimes that's reversed.
Right.
One of my early cases, mom was, she was all about working. She was a manager of a Hallmark store, and she loved working at her Hallmark store. And she worked at a Hallmark store 7 days a week from the time it opened to the time it closed.
And they do have great greeting cards, by the way.
They got great greeting cards.
They do.
But in that case, Dad was designated the primary because Mom worked all the time.
Right.
And Dad had adjusted his own career to make sure he could meet the needs of his own child.
Yeah. So in those cases, it's good. But a lot of times when I would make a recommendation for a father, the mother would still get the child. And so that was frustrating for me to watch that part. And I know you've talked about that too.
That was one of the reasons I ran for judge last fall, because as best as we can do it, the child has to have both parents in their life. The child is
100%.
entitled to have a relationship with both parents, and this is and if they don't have that, it can generate some real long-term impacts. And give an example: if you have parental alienation, it happens.
Yes. That is a very real thing.
It's a very real thing. And what happens is mother is going to put all types of obstacles in the way of father trying to exercise his possession or have a relationship. There's going to be all kinds of reasons why the child shouldn't go with the father on his time, okay? It's going to be all this stuff.
And that can happen on reverse, too. Dad could be trying to do the same
thing. And that's happened, too. I've had that happen. So what happens is Dad continues to fight for the child. That's very important, okay? Even though he's running against a lot of obstacles, a lot of money, a lot of court hearings, he's still fighting for the child. That child will become an adult. And this is a quote: when that child becomes an adult, that child may very well look at the mother and say, "You're the reason I don't have a relationship with my father. I don't see you anymore." And that happens over and over and over.
Very true. Very true. And we know studies tell us over 50% of couples will end up divorced in the United States,
That's
right? So, this is something parents have to be aware of. Your relationship as a married couple may be in jeopardy. It may go to pot, whatever. But you have to realize, if you made the decision to have kids, you have to put those kids ahead of your anger, your frustration, your hurt. And that's what we really need for parents to understand. You are affecting your child's mental health when you are not valuing the role of the other parent.
And I think also, too, a thing that plays into this is, from personal experience, of course, is when you've got two people that can co-parent very well together, but then you have an additional add in there, a girlfriend or a boyfriend, and it completely mucks up the whole situation for the children.
Let's talk about that for a second.
Okay, let's do that.
That's a very common problem.
Right.
All right? the stepmom, girlfriend is the driving force.
Or a stepdad or boyfriend.
The
Right?
same. The courts despise that. They really, really don't like it a bit. They get the sense that it is a step-parent, and they will chew that person out strongly. This is between the child's parents, and you're not that.
Right.
Okay? And they will do everything they can to cut that back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, also, there's a flip side of that story. And I'm talking about where the step-parent is actually interfering in the parental-child relationship or trying to coach that or ramrod that, however you want to say it. But the flip side of that is sometimes, and this is common enough too, a parent is being taken advantage of because they want it to go so well, and they're trying so hard to accommodate the other parent. The other parent starts taking advantage of the parent. And sometimes it's the boyfriend or the girlfriend that says, hey, wait a minute, you have an order here. You need to enforce this order.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
You need to hold somebody in contempt of court for violating this order. Okay? So you can have the relationship. Because part of it is this. For example, the expanded standard possession order, people typically call this every other week. It's really not. It's not every other week. It seems like it, but it's not.
Right.
So dad is going to have first, third, and fifth weekend of each month. And mom's going to have, this is general terms, sometimes this flips. Mom, or the non-primary, is going to have second and fourth, right? Well, what that really means for dad is, or the non-primary, first, third, fifth, and then the next month is the sixth, back-to-back weekends, skip a weekend, and the eighth weekend. So dad is making up time that he's so concerned about on that back-to-back weekend situation, okay? So, and there's a lot of people who are trying to interfere with that.
Right.
Absolutely. It's so hard to watch these kids and what they go through when their parents aren't getting along. And it's like, I just don't understand sometimes why the parents can't see. I can be mad at the father and the child doesn't need to be involved. But a lot of times they're bringing the kids to communicate all that too, or they let them read all the text messages that go on between the parents, and it's like, do they not see how this can affect children?
There's an injunction you put in place, and we also use a tool called the Our Family Wizard.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm a proponent of that, and I refer many families to that.
It's automatically admissible in court of law if it's ordered. So if it's ordered and it's part of a decree or an order of some kind, then the Our Family Wizard printout is automatically admissible that you could take to the court. Okay.
So what is that? What is that printout you're talking about? So the people that don't know what it is, what is that?
The Our Family Wizard is a parenting portal.
And it's now available on an app, so that's really, really easy to use on your phone.
Okay.
It allows you to email through the portal. It allows you to text through the portal. It allows you to advise of all doctor appointments through the portal. It allows you to advise of any extracurricular activity.
So it kind of plays as the mediator.
It does.
No, not a mediator.
But
it's
all
just
of the
Yeah.
communication goes through the wizard.
So you're not having to go direct.
Now here's the stick on that. You have this great tool out here, and then what happens is they get away from it.
Right.
Well, we're getting along so well now. We don't have to use the wizard anymore.
Got
Okay.
it.
Until they add a boyfriend, girlfriend,
Yeah.
or
Until
a
drama
step-
takes place.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm going to try a case tomorrow where they actually got off the wizard, quit using it, and ultimately the whole thing blew up in this nasty
Right.
deal.
It really does keep things in order if all the communication's going through there. Everyone's kind of on their best behavior because it's all
Well, you would
seen
think
by
so,
the
but
court,
sometimes
right?
not. Sometimes people just start typing away, and there it goes. And we're all going, oh, wow, look at that.
But what we call that in my world is people are reacting out of their emotional mind, and that is where all your problem-solving skills are gone. They're reacting to everything emotionally, and they're not connected to the rational mind. And so that is what's happening in these divorces is these people are reacting out of emotion, and they don't think about the long-term consequences of what they're doing. So you could have really good people really screw things up, right?
Good
Here you
intentions,
go, here you
and
go.
it goes left. Yeah.
When you're practicing criminal law, what you have is you have really bad people on their best behavior trying to outshine everyone else.
Yes.
When you're practicing family law, you have really, really good people who are on their very, very worst. And
Yes.
that all comes out. Part of it is this, because of the hate or the anger, okay, by one parent toward the other, or by both of them
Right.
toward each other. They project that on the child, and they're basically saying, this person I was married to is a bad person, morally corrupt, unethical, a liar, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's who that person is. Therefore, my child should not have a relationship with that person because of how I feel about that person.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to cause. It's going to cause all kind of long-term damage right
It's
there.
super selfish.
I mean, it's going to really.
It goes back to what Jeff had said on a previous podcast was it's so selfish when these parents can't separate their anger towards each other because they know the best way to get to that other person is through the child.
Yeah.
Manipulate the child and make them feel like, and
Yes.
so it's hard to watch them go through that.
I was going to comment on this. One of the things about communicating to the child, that has been a problem, a big problem in the past. To the extent of, for example, writing notes and letters, okay, and putting it in the child's backpack and say, give this to your other parent,
Not
okay?
good.
Not good at all.
We don't do that.
No.
In one of my cases, Mama went to jail on this one. She had scheduled a family cruise during the father's summer period of possession, which generally speaks July. Okay,
Right.
She had scheduled a cruise, and then gave the child, okay, the authorization to let the child leave the country on the cruise. And the child, she's actually a young teen at this point, takes the authorization to the father, okay, and asks father to sign the authorization.
Wow.
So here is grown man father with his child, going to be the summer coming up, and now we have an authorization that says she's going to be on this cruise during a portion of the summer. Well, no, we're not doing that.
Right.
No. And that created,
All
that right
kinds of
there
chaos.
created all kinds of drama
I can imagine.
and heartburn by my client, the father, and heartburn on the child because the mother went to the extent of saying, well, all of us, your family, is going on the cruise. We're sorry you can't come.
That is
there?
just so heartbreaking because if parents would realize the value of the co-parenting relationship and there's something special like that coming up, the parents could work together so that they could adjust, okay, this is for her family time to be with your side of the family. I'm just going to take a week or two off of your June time and they'll work it out together.
What you can do, which is, if you're going to play it smart, what you should do is, let's say you got the company special and you're going on the cruise on July 15th, right? All right, leaving out of Galveston for 10 days, right?
Right.
Well, you didn't learn about this a week in advance.
Right,
You know
right.
about this months in advance.
Right.
If you're the parent who's going on the cruise, interfering with the other parent's summer possession, what you do is you pick up the phone or you go through the Our Family Wizard and say, would it be okay?
Yeah.
The father has the right to split up his time
Right.
into two periods of not less than 7 days.
Right.
Okay? So 2 periods. So he can go, okay, I'll take the first week of
June.
July, for example.
Okay.
They go on their trip July 15th. They come back on July 30th, and I'll pick up the remainder of my time, July 31 through, August 15th,
right.
when school starts. That's what you should do, but you need to have a good working relationship with the other parent. And I want to comment on this because it needs to be give and take, right?
Right, of course.
So if parent calls and says, we have a family event this weekend and the cousins are coming in town and I would like Billy and Sue to come with us to see all the families, but it's your weekend, father or the other parent should say, that's great. I will take the next weekend.
Yeah.
Okay?
Absolutely.
And we're going to trade.
Right.
We're going to trade. But as soon as one parent says no and won't trade or provide the makeup time, then we go
it gets
strictly
ugly.
to the order. Strictly to the order. Order says this, and I'm pretty much quoting, the possession and access between the child and the parent will be as the parents may agree. But in
Sure.
the absence of an agreement, it's going to be like this.
So the
Boom,
court
boom, boom.
wants the parents to have some power. They don't want to
Absolutely.
take the power away and make all the decisions for them.
The court wants to grant your divorce to never see you again.
Yeah.
That's the ideal
Right.
thing.
Exactly.
Right.
And what these parents don't understand, if they were really working out of their mind, they would see the value of keeping a working relationship with the other parent.
Well, you love your child, right?
Yes, we
You love
both
your
love the
child?
child. We have that in common. We made this child together. Let's work in the best interest of this child. We don't have to love each other. We don't have to agree on everything. But where it comes to the child, let's work together because it benefits them in situations like this.
If you love your child, right?
Yes.
And the child is probably the most important thing in your life, right?
Right.
The most important thing. And you do everything for your child. And you encourage your child, and you build your child up, and you want your child to have friends, you want your child to do all these kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
That's what your focus is,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
That's what your job
But
is.
that's your job. Well, when you engage in acts of parental alienation,
Yes.
Or
Can
you
you
interfere with
define
the-
that term? Because I don't think everybody knows what that means.
Right.
there's a number of papers and books written about it. Parental alienation is a phrase that means that one parent, either overtly or covertly, is encouraging the destruction of the child's relationship with the other.
So they're doing and
Parent.
saying things
For
to
example.
get in the way of that relationship.
For example, the lady who said, take this cruise authorization.
Right.
Okay? Take the cruise authorization to your father. That's an act of parental alienation. She's directly involved with the child to take the cruise authorization. Child knows she doesn't get to go on the cruise unless dad signs it. Dad is now going to lose his 10 days in July.
Correct.
Okay, and his plans are askew, right? And so the child is all involved. Whose fault is it in the eyes of the child? Well, it's Dad. Because Dad wouldn't let me go on the cruise.
Correct.
Okay? The child is not going to be able to conceive of these ideas. I'm supposed to go spend my summer. And by the way, his place was very, very cool. They lived on a ranch in East Texas,
Yeah.
about 5,000 acres, and stuff, and horses and cattle,
Yes.
the whole business. But mother had engaged in acts that trying to emotionally cause a disconnect between, especially the daughter and the
her
father.
father.
It's an interesting story.
Right.
There's a conclusion to this particular story.
Okay. Fill us in.
A lot more details, but once the child became 18 and was an adult, okay, she didn't want anything to do with father or father's family. She completely disconnected herself from father and father's family.
Because there's probably years of this kind of alienation behavior.
A few years later, not too many, 3 or 4, she reached out to the father and the father's family to basically say she was wrong. And this is what had happened to her.
And I think we see that a lot, actually. We see a lot of that brokenness. And then years later, after these kids kind of understand the dynamics, they always come back. And I think the reminder to parents, because I personally went through this, is they will understand one day, but your job is to lift the other parent up and make sure that there's good co-parenting. And they will get it, I promise, because they do see it eventually. You know, I think that's the biggest thing is when we go into something, you have great intentions for your children, but when you start adding in all these other little things that kind of play a part of it, like girlfriends and boyfriends and stuff, and you start allowing them to have the voice for what you two agreed on, it causes chaos.
The worst thing someone can do happens all the time. As you bring the girlfriend into your life, into this dating relationship, right? And suddenly this parent, the father, in my example, starts telling the kids they got to call this person mom.
Right.
Or vice versa, calling the other one dad.
And so, and that's,
Yeah.
and that creates, I mean,
Yeah. You only
I
have
can't
one
say
mama,
it here
one
on the
daddy.
podcast,
So
but that's just so
confusing.
stupid.
Yeah,
And it's
it
so
really is.
confusing for
It
the
really is.
kids. It's so confusing
Yeah.
for the kids.
You know, and
You
I've
don't
always
do that.
I've always said too, though, if you have someone in your life that you love that you want to call your like mom or bonus mom, hey, I look at it as being great. You know what? It's a good thing because it shows everybody can get along. But a lot of times you're right. A lot of times these kids will be like, you know, what do I call you or what do I call them? And whenever the other person insists on it, it just takes it to a whole different level
Whole
of those
different
kids.
You should
level.
wait until that relationship is long
They want to,
established.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Long established.
Right.
And one of our orders that we generate is a dating relationship order, which basically means that a child cannot be in the presence of or introduced to a girlfriend or boyfriend for a period of 6 months until such time as that relationship has been monogamous for a period of 6 months.
Okay, is that new or has that been around for a hot minute?
It's been around. It's new. It's
Okay.
been around. It's been it's new. It's been around for 2, 3, 5 years.
Okay, so that's new.
There's a judge up in Denton County that will automatically order it in every case.
I like
Bam.
that. Okay.
That's one of the issues I'm going to be trying tomorrow in another county.
Okay.
Okay, because Daddy has lots and lots of girlfriends. So
And that is such a problem for these kids. You know what?
So, yeah.
It does go back to, Earl, what you were saying earlier. Every child has the right to have a relationship with both their parents.
Yeah.
And no parent has the right to take that away unless there's like a form of abuse of some sort.
Right.
Exactly. If you love your child, that's what you want.
Yeah.
Now, I was also going to comment on that, too. You got to watch this. It's very true for teens. Where one parent starts playing, where the teen starts playing one parent.
Oh, yeah.
The other parent.
It's bad enough in a home that's not divorced. Then you can do it with a house that's divorced. It's a good
Bam,
one.
bam.
It is so
Yes.
hard. And those teens are so smart.
They
They are
are.
so smart and
They are.
manipulative. They know how to work the system.
They do.
And this is out there, too. There's a lot of subjects in this thing. But anyways, they think because a child is 14 years of age or 16 years of
Okay.
age that the child gets to choose which parent they get to live with.
Right.
That is totally, totally false.
Oh, and they work their parents, don't they, off that?
They work it. And usually, especially with a teen, it's going to be going to the parent with less rules.
Right,
Okay?
right.
Because there's always going to be the good time parent. And the good time parent is going to usually be the dad. Why?
Right.
Because he's basically seeing his kids
Every other weekend.
Part-time.
call
Right.
it every other weekend.
Right.
So he's a good time parent. They're going to the baseball game. They're going to see the Cowboys. They're going to whatever stuff they're doing. They're going hunting. They're going camping. They fish. They're doing stuff and it's all fun. And he, the father in this particular case, doesn't want to jeopardize his relationship with his child. Okay? So he is a lot more lax.
Yes.
Okay? He's a lot more lax than the other parent, which is usually mama in this case. I want to use these sexist terms, I suppose. Usually mama, and mama says, you're going to be doing your homework.
Right.
You got chores.
You got your chores
You
in
got
this
a
house.
curfew.
Yeah.
You're going to be home
Oh,
by
yeah.
10.
Yeah.
I need to know where you are. I have the app 360 on my phone.
You better not turn it off.
You better,
That's like me.
I got rules around here.
Yes.
You know, and they look at who are you dating? Who's his
Yeah.
family? That kind of thing. No, you're not. And so what a child will do, will start playing. Child now wants to go to dad because dad's a riot. Right? Now also note that dad wants child to come live with him. Why? Other than the relationship situation.
Less child support.
No child support. Mama's going to be paying him. Okay? There's no child support there. Mama pays him now. Happens all the time.
Which women
It
do
does.
not like. I'm just going to
Happens
say.
all
Yeah.
the time.
Dads they'll pay it for the first something amount of years, and
Yeah.
then they get tired of paying for it, and they're like, "Well, the way to do this, the kids are older; they don't need
Yeah.
as much."
So let me tell you about the child
Yeah.
interview, which is on this. The child interview means, okay, and the statute says if a child is 12 years or age older, the child can express their intention of which parent they would primarily want to live
Yeah.
with. Okay?
Right.
Right? That's what the statute says.
Yeah.
Now, everybody gets, as I said earlier, everybody says, well, that means the child gets to choose. Not in the least. Not in the least. That means the court has to consider the preference of the child, but the court is not bound by it. The court is going to look into the best interest of the child.
Correct.
Okay, i.e., the court's going to be looking into the structure of this one parent who has all the rules and the good times of the other, and says, well, maybe not. And just because Billy wants to go live with Dad, don't mean so. But this is something nobody knows about really. The court is required to interview the child if the child's 12 years of age or older, right?
Right.
Right.
Doesn't say what kind of interview. So, in the words of a great judge downtown, she says, I've interviewed the child, and I've considered it. Statute requires me to consider that, so I've considered it. It's time to move on. Call your next witness.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Another judge will come out and say, how are you, Billy? Are you doing good? What sports do you like to play? Oh, you like to play football, et cetera, et cetera. Are you good in any subjects at school? Yes, he's good at math, let's say. Okay, reading, all right? Oh, okay, well, it's so wonderful to meet you, Billy. I'm sure your parent is waiting for you out in the hallway, and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye, Billy. There's a judge downtown Dallas plays that every single time.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Now,
So the child's not really being heard.
No. Now there is.
And the attorneys know that. So they know if they get that
No,
specific...
they don't know that.
Well, but if they get that specific judge, don't
And
you
that's
think
a pattern.
they're already like, well, this judge is not going to rule
I
on
will say
behalf
that
of the child.
almost all judges approach it from the same perspective.
Okay.
The exception is, if you, like one of my cases right now, if you have a serious issue,
Right.
okay,
Right.
that child will be interviewed by Family Court Services,
Okay.
which is supposed to be a forensic interview
Okay.
to determine the child's feelings, emotions, and why the child feels that way.
Right.
And that is given in a report.
Right.
And even the lawyers don't get a permanent copy. The lawyers have to go downtown, read it, then give it back.
Well, it's interesting because I want to specify there was one case that I knew of with a friend that had child of age to make the decision. And let me tell you, the parent had put in this child's head, at this age, you can make the decision. You just got to go before the judge and tell the judge what's going on, right? So they get there, and they knew there was a lot of counseling in between this that had taken place, forensic counseling between the parents. There was a little division, right? They knew that when they got there, she would get to speak to the judge. And I remember her getting to speak to the judge, and in between that, though, with the forensic psychologist, they had found out it seemed like that counselor was going to rule on behalf of the parent that the girl wanted to go live with, right? Well, they didn't realize that the dad was manipulating the child to get information from the mother on the side, and she got caught doing it. The judge was going to rule on the behalf of the child wanting to live with her father until that information came in. So my question to you is, how important is that when you think, or you've got a client that says, there's some manipulation going on here, I really want to get down to this before she makes this decision or he makes this decision. Do you ever get that feeling of something's off?
Proof.
Well, I know
Okay.
you got to have proof, but do you ever get a feeling that something's off and
sure.
let's take an additional
All the time.
step to make sure?
All the time.
Okay.
All the time. It happens. You get the feeling and you believe it.
Right.
But the comments you just made are conclusionary. Conclusions are not evidence, okay?
Right.
I need to have some proof, some evidence that this is taking place.
Right.
For example, in our case where the child who's made the suicide outcries, okay?
Yeah.
Is there direct proof between her days of outcry and her period of possession with her mother? Is there direct proof? The answer to that was no.
Okay.
Is there circumstantial proof? The answer to that is yes. Is there something to be concerned about? Yes.
And
but
that's
do
where
we
it's like-
see anything?
And that's where a psychologist is going to be really helpful in putting all those pieces together, or a counselor or someone of that nature, a mental health professional.
That's right.
At least it should be, right? I mean,
The look on your face is telling us otherwise. But
audience,
so,
if you could see
Let me
the
tell you,
look on his face.
And with all due respect, in the family law business,
Yeah.
there are a lot of clowns out there calling
yeah.
themselves counselors.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
a lot of people out there, okay, who are dangerous and should have no part of expressing opinions to a court. In fact, there are CLEs, learned papers over and over and over, books written about how to test and cross-examine the particular counselor or psychologist who's come to the courtroom. In fact, just a few years ago, they completely rewrote the social studies statute and explicitly stated in there exactly what the social study person has to do in order to make any recommendations. Got to follow a whole procedure. The same was done with the attorney ad litem and the guardian ad litem. That was explicitly set forth in the statute because we had all these different colors coming into the situation, different opinions, and feel-good stuff. And it's dangerous. It's dangerous for that child. It's very dangerous. And so I'm thinking of one in particular, exceedingly dangerous. And actually the Jeff Younger case. And I can use his name because the whole state knows about Jeff Younger, okay?
Right.
So, and the psychologist that was involved in that case is obscene. He's on the radio all the time. So, yeah, you get these people to come in and make recommendations, and you're like, where did that come from?
And that's true.
I have a case right now out of Tarrant County. The case was assigned to Family Court Services for social study, okay? The mother has had probably 8 police calls to her home in the last 6 months. She has acts of family violence and threatening family violence with a firearm in the presence of the child against one of her boyfriends.
Oh, no.
She's had a number of, she has men coming over to the place all the time. Anyways, and she's straight up alcoholic. She took her PET test. She scored a 200 on it. And if you know anything about the PET test, that's a big number. A lot of alcohol flowing through your cells when that happens.
Okay, because I'm not familiar with that test.
Tell her all about it.
And on temporary orders, the primary designation has been changed, and the mother's been put on a limited possession and access in controlled circumstances, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm getting to my point because I drag on too much. Case was ordered to go to Family Court Services for social study. The person who was put in charge of the social study looked at the dad and said, "You got no chance. You might as well give up now."
That just makes me sick as a mental health professional, and especially one who wrote social studies and was involved in the court system. And the thought of that just makes me sick because it's not doing your job. Your job is to interview all parties and make a professional decision.
Exactly.
Or recommendation, not
recommendation.
Decision. Yeah.
We're trying that case this fall, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
How
so difficult.
I mean, she's got a serious alcohol issue.
Yeah.
So, there it is.
So, Earl, this has been so enlightening just to understand what families are going through the legal system and the impact it has on kids. I think on parents' mental health, too. I think, like you said, you can have a really good parent doing really crazy things out there because of the issues associated with just splitting the family. And the fact that these kids are really suffering, and we have kids who are suicidal and the depression's going up, and the statistics show all of that. This has been so valuable for our audience, and I can guarantee you there will be another invitation to you to come on to our show. We have so much to learn from you, Earl, and we so appreciate everything that you have offered our audience today.
Yes,
well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thank you so much, Earl. And audience, he will be back. Mental Perk will bring Earl back.
Yes.
If you or anyone you know is struggling with any mental health issues, we want you to reach out to a friend, a trusted family member, somebody you trust. We want you to get connected with a professional. If you are having self-harm thoughts or suicidal thoughts, we want you to get immediate help. Dial 911, go to the nearest ER, or you can call the National Suicide Hotline at 988. We at Mental Perk want you to know you're worthy. We're in this together.